This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under-18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 493 for November 10th, 2016. Coming up on today's show, asking for positive reinforcement. That's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Minx, here with the co-host I've been sad to be without for a while.
I know. I've missed being here. Happy to be back. Hello, everybody. It's Lusty Guy once more, sharing the microphone with Cunning Minx.
And we do have a listener question today about how to get more positive reinforcement from your partner. But first, it is November 10th.
Dun, dun, dun.
In the United States.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it is impossible not to talk about the
presidential election that just happened.
I was trying to find the right adjective. Heartbreaking, horrifying.
Bothersome, disturbing. I mean, as Elle said, we were wandering around prepping dinner. Everybody was here. And I said to Elle, boy, there's no joy in the house today. And she looked and said, nope, no joy in Mudville.
You know, it's been really different for me this time. I've definitely had a candidate that I didn't, particularly care for the policies that won, and I rolled my eyes and groaned, and then life was fine. I feel like with this particular election, I can't even say the name. I can't even say the name. This particular election, I have had butterflies is too generous a word. I have had a gnawing pit of fear in my stomach for the last week, and it only grew worse on Tuesday evening. And today, we're recording on Wednesday. Today, I've just been in shock. I am numb. I'm looking around the world, and I cannot believe this is the America that I live in, where a majority of people, well, I guess we could talk about that, but where hundreds of thousands, millions of people in this country cast their ballots for racism and misogyny from someone who can't even put together a coherent sentence and who has absolutely zero familiarity with the Constitution or the way the branches of government even work. I'm horrified. I felt like this morning when I woke up, I felt like I was in one of those episodes of Star Trek or one of the sci-fi shows when you wake up in an alternate reality and you're just really grateful that, oh, thank goodness this isn't the real reality. And I was like, it can't be, it can't be, it can't be. And apparently it is. It is.
I mean, I've been on clear record. I am a political junkie. I follow politics closely. And like most people who do, and most people who look at the numbers, I have been saying that Trump can't win for months, since the primary. And here's why. And first of all, before we get to that, let's just say that Trump did not win the popular vote. It's really important.
It's a small consolation.
It is not a small I know you feel that way. And I know from a practical point of view, in terms of who holds the office, in terms of just brass politics and power, it is a small consideration. I agree with you. I don't want to diminish what you're saying. On the other hand, it is not a small thing to say that a majority of the American voters rejected Trump. They did not do so emphatically as to then take the Electoral College out of the system. They did not do so strongly as to be able to put Hillary Clinton in office. But the truth of the matter is a bare majority of U.S. voters rejected Donald Trump. And then a broken, depending on how we can get into that, but a system that filters and distorts the voters' will put Donald Trump into office.
I love that you have the mental capacity to actually do a rational analysis of what happened. I do not. All I can think is this is no consolation for our LGBTQ friends who in the last 8 years have actually made some strides in terms of getting some of the rights that everybody else enjoys, and who are now looking at a leader who is pledging to take all those rights away.
Oh, there are literally something like 1 million dead people because George W. Bush won a presidential election and we went to war. I am not saying that it's inconsequential that Donald Trump is in office as opposed to Hillary Clinton. It will be a life and death reality for millions of people. That's true. Of all stripes and from all nations. If you look just at the climate change implications alone,
my God,
it's going to be huge and meaningful. So when I say it's important to recognize that a majority of the American people did not vote for that, I think it is important to recognize that a majority of the American people did not choose that. It's what we're going to get anyway. But it's important to recognize that it's not what a majority voted for. And here's why. It's possible that that majority will feel somewhat affronted that their will isn't going to be put into effect and become a little more politically active, which may mitigate some of the impact Trump would otherwise have.
I think you're probably right historically when I think about how this is going to be taught in schools and how this election will be viewed. I think that is important historically. For somebody who tried desperately to go to bed last night, it was, I go to bed early, right? So I actually left our election viewing party around 8 or 9 p.m. when the results weren't in, but it was looking kind of bad.
Oh, it was pretty clear by then what was going to happen.
And I tried to go to sleep, and because I tried and failed. And around 1 a.m., I actually checked the results because I'd been trying for hours to go to sleep, and just that feeling in the pit of my stomach about what if Trump, what if he grabs Angela Merkel's pussy? I mean, he doesn't seem to have any type of filters to show respect to anyone when he feels, affronted, whether his affront is legitimate or not. And I fear for our role in the world when he can't get a sentence out in front of other world leaders. I don't know. I have all these horrendous fears that I see UN troops marching into the US because we're accused of so many human rights violations. Oh. I mean, I'm actually surprised. I'm talking about how I feel. So you're right. You're doing the rational analytical. I am doing the feely because I have never felt like this after presidential election. I've been upset by the results, but in the end, I never felt like my day-to-day life was going to change significantly because of the results of an election. And, sometimes in the end it did, but I never felt that it would too much. I mean, maybe, one put a few more bucks back in my pocket or not. Maybe one made it a little bit easier or harder to find a job. Maybe one passed laws that hurt me and my friends, but that I would just shirk, and that was fine. But this, I genuinely was surprised. I'm walking around like a zombie in a stunned state. And, I still had to work today. So I'm sitting here trying to do marketing work while I'm in shock and staring out the window and wondering why I'm not seeing, like smoking buildings and burning tires, because in my head, this is the apocalypse.
Well, and note that actually right now there is a demonstration happening here in Seattle and in LA and Oakland and somewhere else. I was just seeing it scroll across my feed where there is burning tires and turned over cars. So that's starting to happen now. There will be demonstrations. I
haven't been able to check the news today. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't post on my regular Facebook. I did do a few posts on Minx's Facebook because it's a fairly safe environment for me. But holy crap, I can't even check the news today. I'm horrified. I feel like we've elected Hitler or Pinochet or Mussolini or Franco or Kim Jong-un. I mean, name the dictator of your choice. This is what I feel we have done.
Well, we may have. I think that, so let me back up for a second. when I talk about this election right now, there are a couple of things that I want to say. One is that anything I say is first impressions only. It's 24 hours later, and there hasn't been enough time to really get good data to fully feel like I have an understanding of what's going on. And when Minx talks about, I'm being all rational and logical, that's how I deal with my emotional reactions. And she's nodding her head. She's like, "Yeah,
yeah." Okay, I'm just yes, sweetie. I know, I'm good for you that you can do that. I wish I could.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that as anything. There's no wish you could superiority. There's nothing about that. That's just how I deal with it.
It's just what you do, which is okay.
And so I have spent all day looking at the exit poll data, looking at the turnout data, looking at who voted where, what, and to the extent that we can figure out why, trying to understand how this election happened, because I completely thought Trump could not win nationally. And he didn't in the popular vote.
Almost everyone thought that, including the pollsters and the media. And
everyone was right. He did not win the national vote.
I would argue Trump himself, because he was making all those accusations about the election being rigged, which was, to me, his cover your ass strategy of he knew he was going to lose. I don't think anyone saw this coming.
No. There were a few people, and actually two that I know of, neither of which used polling data to inform their opinion, or demographic data, or political thought. One was Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, who said that Trump was a hypnotist and was using hypnotherapy techniques and persuasive techniques to win the election. He was going to win. And Adams called that before the primaries, by the way.
Well, he's certainly using brainwashing techniques.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, nobody's tied in a chair. In any case, the next step, the next one who I saw is a history professor who has a 6-point test, a 13-point test, 6 of which determine the outcome of the election. But it has some internal contradictions, and I'm not sure how much credence I put in that. The point is, pretty much everybody who looked at polling data and the numbers thought that this election was going to go the other way. And everybody's surprised by that. Now, let me say, like I said, that these are all my first impressions. The other most important thing that I have a real need to say and live is this. We have a responsibility, and by we I mean we American citizens, have a responsibility to do everything we can to make sure we have not elected a Pinochet. As I said to both Minx and Elle, honestly, I cannot stand by while people are rounded up and deported. We have to be prepared if that eventuality happens to either left the nation or be prepared to experience the repercussions of me engaging in serious civil disobedience. That's the least we can do. And we as a nation have to be ready to stand with those people who may very well face real danger from this new administration, from whatever minority that they come from, be it racial, ethnic, sexual orientation, or whatever.
Religious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're going to ban Muslims, apparently.
Right. Now, here's the thing. People who voted for Trump have been saying from the beginning, he's not really going to do that. It's just talk. That's not really what's going to happen. I have been wrong about the Trump campaign from the beginning. Never thought he'd get this far. Never thought he would win. I sincerely hope, to my friends who voted for Donald Trump, that you are right. And he's not going to do those things. I really hope you are.
I should have done a warning at the beginning saying if you don't want to hear about the election or if it's too much for you to handle.
A trigger warning?
Exactly. Fast forward however many 10 or 20 minutes, however long we talk about it. Maybe I'll add one later on. I guess what's important to say is, I just want to send a shout out to our LGBTQ friends and our people of color friends and our friends in different countries who have, any type of trade or political agreement with us, whether they be allies or enemies. And I just feel like I need to say, I am so sorry. I am not just embarrassed and ashamed, but horrified that this has happened. And please don't judge the entire United States based on the outcome of this election, because many of us, I dare say most of us, still believe in human rights and still believe in the sacredness of diversity and will still fight for you and care about you and love you.
Well, again, most of us voted for Hillary Clinton.
Indeed.
Now, one thing that I want to say here, a lot of people after a situation like this, so I've been politically active and involved all of my life. When Minx talked about how she felt after this election, that really reminded me after how I felt after the first time Ronald Reagan was elected. And after Ronald Reagan was elected, there were many people in the far left who simply left the country, who did exactly what people are squawking about now and won't do. So yes, this hurts. I don't want to diminish anybody else's pain. Yes, I believe Donald Trump represents a threat to the American governance in a way that no president ever has. Yes, I think those things are true. Having said that, it's also not the first time my heart has been broken this particular way. Now, when your heart gets broken this way, people are often looking for something that they can do. And let me tell you, one of the most important things I think all of us can do is support the national popular vote movement. We'll put the link in the show notes. Okay, I'm going to get a little into the weeds here, so bear with me. First of all, I have not fully and formally vetted this organization that I'm going to talk about. That might be a weakness on my part. I have fully vetted the idea they're pushing and thought about it. So let's get to that. Again, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. The person who's going to be taking the presidency did not win the popular vote, won the Electoral College. That's happened now 5 times, I think, in our history. If you think democracy is a good idea and the will of the people should be respected, you kind of got to think that's a bad outcome. Now, if you're going to look at the intent of the system, it's in fact exactly how the system was designed. It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to be so that places have political power, so that because the votes that are going to come from these rural areas are worth a little more than the votes that are going to come from highly packed areas, it encourages the candidates to get out to those rural areas. That's one of the rules. That's one of the thinking things. I don't believe it, but it's one of the arguments. I think it's crap. I think that it should be direct. The vote of people should put in who is in office. The winner of the popular vote should be the president. However, to get there, we've always thought you had to have a constitutional amendment that would get rid of the Electoral College, that would say to these states, these places where there aren't very many people, you have to accept you're going to lose some of your power. You're not going to be able to get a candidate in that loses the popular vote, but wins in all of these states and thus wins the Electoral College. Well, what state is going to agree to that? They're not. So you're never going to get this constitutional amendment through. Unsolvable problem. Now comes the national popular vote movement. They say, here's how we're going to work it. We'll create a law that a state can pass that says we will proportion our Electoral College votes directly with the national popular vote. So think about that for a second. It says, let's say you're California with your 50 or whatever Electoral College votes. Your total Electoral College votes have to go to whoever wins the national popular vote. And then this law says this way of counting votes will only go into effect when enough states have passed the law so that they combine for 270 Electoral College votes. It's brilliant. No state loses power until they all do it together and do it in a way that guarantees the president is the person that won the national vote. Genius. I love this idea. We should have done it a long time ago. Support their efforts now. There's a list of states that have already passed it. Adds up to like 165 electoral votes. 90 more electoral votes. States with 90 more electoral votes. And we never have this problem again.
Okay, I do feel a little bit better with that. So we'll provide a link to that in the show notes at polyweekly.com. And now I please want to get off the topic that is making me want to throw up. And it has for the last week and a half. And switch to a topic where I feel like we actually can make a difference right now.
Well, watch my feed for a full write-up on my thoughts on this topic, because I ain't done.
So our listener question this week. Oh, please let me be able to help someone. I really hate feeling helpless, and this makes me feel helpless. So our listener writes in, asking the question, how do I get more positive reinforcement? She writes, most of my partners are male and don't quite understand the importance of positive reinforcement, even though I've expressed my need for verbal reassurance clearly and honestly, or at least I feel I have, by saying things like, I need you to tell me more that I matter to you, or I need to hear that you won't leave me, or it's very important to me to hear you say what it is that you like about me so that I feel more confident in myself. Oftentimes, I end up feeling like I'm annoying them or kind of convincing them to lie to me because if I keep saying, I need to know I'm important and not replaceable, but they never feel like saying it on their own. And then I think that maybe they never say these things on their own because they never actually think about me. One of my partners has had a particularly difficult time dealing with this way of communicating and becomes angry at me for needing reassurance for what he feels is obvious. As in, I love you. Why can't you just see that? You know how much you mean to me. And I will add my own editorial comment, which I think is implied here, which is, why do I need to actually say it all the time? She continues, and that's the core of the problem, because without constant verbal reassurance, I don't feel it, and then I become insecure, and then I become jealous, and all hell breaks loose. Do you think I need to seek out help somewhere else to deal with my insecurities? Or maybe you could suggest better ways of my communicating my needs, some strategy I haven't thought about. I worry that my constant asking for reassurance makes me an annoyance and pushes those I love away. Any helpful advice with this issue would be wonderful. Okay.
Go to.
So I will start by saying, you say that you're worried about that this will put people off. So my first question to you is, are you worried that it will put people off, or is it actually putting people off?
Well, it sounds like one of her partners is getting angry at her, she says.
It sounds like one of your partners, she doesn't say angry. She says, well, actually, no, she does, has a difficult time with this and becomes angry at me. So there's one partner. That doesn't mean that this would put off every partner, right? So, well,
every potential partner or every current partner?
Yeah, I don't know what other partner she has. So if it's bothering this one partner, but you go and ask, the other partners you have, and they're like, no, that's fine. I need to do that more anyway. Well, then you might be able to take a bit of reassurance from that. And I would also put out there that we all want what we want. It is always okay to want what you want and need what you need. Other people, that being said, okay, so to actually answer your question, is there another way to deal with this? I have learned so much from hanging around Lusty Guy and Elle, because they are better than anyone else I've ever met at constantly giving positive reinforcement. If I hang around them for an hour, I can be guaranteed that I will hear at least 2 or 3 thank yous for doing that. Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you for doing the dishes. Thank you for that. I know that at least twice a day, if not 10 times a day, when I interact with my sweetie Lusty Guy, he will say, I so appreciate that you can express yourself this way. I feel so lucky that I'm with you. Every single time we still don't live in the same place. And so we have a nighttime call before we go to bed. And he inevitably ends almost every call with, I'm so happy to be with you. I'm so glad we found each other. I really love us and our relationship. Every single fucking day.
But it's true.
Over and over and over again. So, and you've also taught me to model the behavior that you want to see. So one school of thought would say, if you want to see a lot of positive reinforcement, then give a lot of positive reinforcement. Now, some people may see this as passive aggressive. I actually have found that it is a bit annoying at first, and it feels a little passive aggressive at first. But once you get the hang of it, you can actually start seeing some results. It's not right away. It'll typically take a while. But I have seen that once I started doing this, after a while, like typically a couple of weeks, if I see the person every day, they'll start parroting some of it back to me, which is kind of nice. And I don't know if you do relationship check-ins like we recommend, where you get together like once a week or once a month on a regular basis in a safe, neutral space. And all you do is talk about how the relationship is going. Is it going well? Is it going poorly? What things are going really well? What things do you wish could be a little bit different? And that's a good time to bring this up too and say, hey, you're doing really great with the positive reinforcements. Thank you. I can always use more. So 2 a day is good. 3 a day is better. And that's a great time to give positive feedback on any positive feedback that you are receiving from your partner. And also talk about, how it's going, so that if you do get the behavior that you want to see, that person gets positive feedback on that. Now, that being said, I'm not you. I don't know how this is affecting truly your love life. So if you feel the need to work on your own insecurities, which I think everybody should do, I think we should all be aware of and continue to work as a lifetime goal on our insecurities. I think it's perfectly fine if you want to get a therapist, or just write a user manual, or, start a list of goals and start working on yourself. Or if you want to do, maybe some of the jealousy exercises and start working through that, substituting your insecurities for the jealousies. I think that will only benefit you. And then if you do that, then you can report your progress on that during your check-ins as well. So you're working on it. Maybe he's working on it.
Well, I want to absolutely give a strong second to the notion of modeling the behavior that you'd like to see. That is a really nice strategy. And
you do it very well.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I have a saying here that I say all the time, and I say it in a gendered way, and I realize it's not really a gendered saying, and perhaps this is a demonstration of my cis privilege, but I'm going to say it as the way I usually do and ask you to modify it in your head so that it fits to you. And that is, if a man is lucky enough to be with a woman who tells him what she wants, he'd best be smart enough to listen to her. Now, here's the thing. You do have, in fact, every right to want what you want. I'm going to assume that you've reached a point with your partners where everybody agrees that they understand that what the idea is being expressed, what it is. So in other words, when you say to your partner, I have a need for more verbal positive reinforcement, they can look at you and say, I hear you and understand that you're asking for more verbal positive reinforcement. That's the first step. Get to there. Sounds like you are to there.
Yeah.
If you are to there, it's not a communication problem. In the poly community, for all that Minx's suggestions for positive communication are valuable and may help you, if you already have established communication, if they know what's going on and are choosing not to respond to it, it's not a communication issue. Communicating more isn't going to help you. What you need to do, in essence, what I hear you saying is, I'm asking for this change in behavior from my partner. They're not giving it to me. Okay. If that's the case, and if that's accurate, and if they understand that you want this change in behavior, and if they're not going to give it to you, you really have two choices. Eliminate the need for that change of behavior in you, end the relationship. That's kind of it. And if I was with somebody who could not and would not consistently even try to meet my needs once they had understood what they were, that would matter to me. Now, I'm not saying that I would leave, and I'm not telling you to dump the motherfucker already. Don't get me wrong. Because I have good friends who have been together for many, many years who've just modified their relationship so that those needs that they would normally have met by their partner, they get met somewhere else. And that totally works for them.
Right.
And it may totally work for you. Right? You may be able to address your insecurities and get to the point where you don't feel you need those verbal reassurances. You may be able to understand your partner enough to realize when they put the toothpaste away the way you want in the morning, that's their way of saying I love you. And you get that feeling met through some other nonverbal way. That's a possibility too. But if you are continuing to wait to have a need met by having a partner change their behavior, the odds are really good that's not going to play out well.
Yeah.
So think about that. And think about whether or not you really absolutely need this behavior from your partner. And if the answer is yes, make sure your partner understands that. And if they're not willing to give you a behavior that you really absolutely need, you got some thinking to do.
Actually, this reminds me a little bit of, I did have a partner once that simply would refuse to give compliments because he felt that compliments were 100% of the time insincere. So there'd be some times when I would ask him for a compliment, right? And basically, doesn't this outfit look great? Don't I look awesome? Aren't I an amazing partner? Whatever. And he would deflect. And so we ended up talking about it for a little bit. And, he said that if you ask me for a compliment and then I give you the compliment you ask for, how can that be seen as sincere? Because I'm clearly only giving you the compliment because you asked me to. So therefore, it couldn't be sincere. How could that have any value? I will not do it. Which completely boggled my mind. As you say, many partners, if you say, tell me my butt looks awesome in this dress, they're like, your butt looks awesome in that dress.
That would be the smart thing to do.
Or in some cases, depending upon your relationship dynamic and your level of communication, they might say, do you want the truth or do you want to hear the compliment?
Yeah, there you go.
Whatever. Okay. But when you ask for something, the partner's like, I'm not going to do it. As Lusty Guy says, sometimes you have to decide, is that important to you? Now, in his case, I decided it wasn't that important to me. I had
He not being Lusty Guy.
Not Lusty Guy.
Let's make that clear.
This was someone else. Right. You're awesome with compliments. You compliment me when I feel and look like shit. And I'm like, I know you're lying, but thank you for saying it.
But I'm not. But anyway, go on.
Anyway, and with this particular partner, I decided, you know what, I don't need that. I had a high enough level of self-esteem. There were so many other things that were really great. It was a minor annoyance that he would never give a compliment, but he did show his affection and his link and attachment to me in enough other ways that I was fine, right? But you may not feel that way. Only you know you. Only you know what you need. If you go to therapy and, you work on this and you get it taken care of, great. For me, if I did that, I would probably end up resenting my partner that I had to do all the work and he couldn't give a little. Like, that's just how I work. If I'm working really hard on myself and I don't feel the partner's working hard on themselves, then fuck that shit. But that's me, right? You decide what's right for you.
Absolutely. Now, I'd like to hit on a couple of things that I noticed in your wording that may have some value, some thoughts for you. First of all, when you talk about constantly needing verbal reassurance, what does that really mean? Are you really saying constantly, like every moment of every interaction, you're always tugging on their shoulder saying, hey, 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 hey? What does that constantly mean? Or does constantly really mean I do it more often than they would like? Get some specificity there. Figure out, because honestly, like Mink says, through the course of the day, I try to appreciate and be appreciated by my partners numerous times. I wouldn't call it constantly, but regularly.
I would say, it's not once a week. It's 3 times a day.
Yeah.
I call that fairly constant.
Yeah. Well, sure. But is 3 times a day a problem?
How about frequent?
Is it a problematic behavior? Is it the same as if I were wandering around tugging on your sleeve literally constantly? No, that would be annoying to anybody, right? If every verbal interaction had to involve some expression of love and affection, all of us would get annoyed. That's what constantly means. I think that you may have internalized a little bit of it's too much for me to constantly is my point there. And consider that. I'm not sure that it really is constantly. The second little bit of wording, you say, sadly for me, most of my partners are male and they don't quite understand the importance that I need this verbal reassurance. So I'm going to invite you to forget about what's going on in their heads and why. You can't know, and it's not helpful. Are they not giving you the verbal reassurance you need because they're male, or because they grew up in a household where that wasn't done? Or because they're afraid of the emotional response in them when they express that level of intimacy with you? Or because they're just an asshole? Who knows? Doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not you're getting your needs met and whether or not you believe you can get your needs met. And the more time you spend thinking it's because they don't understand me or because they're male or whatever, the less time you're addressing on the operant thing, which is, do I need this behavior? Am I going to get this behavior?
Right. Well, I hope that was helpful. Again, I wanted to make sure we got something productive and helpful out of this episode. I think I'm going to go back to being in shock now. And I think I'm going to go home and I'm going to curl up and cry. And then I'm going to put on a brave face and go to work tomorrow morning and hope this icy death feeling in the pit of my stomach eventually goes away.
You rock.
Yeah.
I am going to continue researching a retreat to Latin America and digging into the details of the election and why it turned out the way it did.
So if you have questions, comments, or feedback, we'll provide a link that we mentioned earlier in the show notes at polyweekly.com. You can email us at polyweekly@gmail.com. You can call us 802-505-POLY, and we'll play your comment on the show unless you tell us not to, or unless the audio's too bad for people to hear through a podcast. And of course, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/polyweekly, and on Twitter at polyweekly and at cunningminx, and several other places as well that you can find at polyweekly.com. Normally, I say thank you for listening, but I kind of want to say thank you for being you. Thank you for being the wonderful, diverse set of people that you are. And I know we'll get through this.
Oh, yeah. And I will say thank you for listening.
Okay. And as always, remember,
it's not all about the sex or the politics.